Hey guys, it's the Nightmare Dreamscape. I just wanted to say that today's story is a good one, and that I hope you enjoy it. If you want your story featured on the channel, check the description below, and be sure to leave a like and comment. Enjoy. The Station Guard. I never thought that I would end up working as a station guard on an island prison housing the most dangerous criminals on the planet. But life has a way of taking unexpected turns, and mine led me here. It all started when I was in the Marines. I served for 5 years. And during that time, I developed a reputation for being fearless and highly skilled in combat. That's why after I was discharged, the CIA offered me a job as a station guard on this island prison. At first, I was hesitant to take the job, but the pay was good, and I knew that my skills would be put to good use. Little did I know that I was signing up for one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. The Voids, as we call them, are not just ordinary criminals. They possess supernatural abilities that range from telekinesis to shapeshifting. We classify their abilities into 5 different classes, with Class 5 being the most dangerous. Class 1 Voids are those with mild abilities, such as the ability to levitate objects or read minds. They are relatively easy to contain and pose little threat to our guards. Class 2 Voids have more potent abilities, such as telekinesis or elemental control. They require more significant security measures, but we can usually keep them under control. Class 3 Voids are highly dangerous, with the ability to manipulate reality and alter minds. They pose a severe threat to our security and require constant monitoring. Class 4 Voids are almost impossible to contain. They possess godlike powers, such as time travel or teleportation. We keep them locked in a separate facility and only allow our most experienced guards to approach them. Finally, we have Class 5 Voids, the most dangerous of them all. They possess the ability to warp reality and bend it to their will. We keep them in maximum security facilities, and only the most skilled and experienced guards are allowed to interact with them. It's a dangerous job, but someone has to do it. And for me, it's not just a job, it's a calling. I know that the fate of the world rests in our hands, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep these voids contained, even if it means risking my life every day. I was patrolling the prison when the alarms began blaring. It was the kind of sound that sends shivers down your spine, and I knew that something was very wrong. I sprinted down the corridors towards the source of the alarm and came to a stop outside the entrance to the cell block where we kept the voids. The door was shattered, and the cell block was in chaos. The voids had somehow broken out of their cells, and they were attacking each other and anyone else in their path. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare. I watched in horror as a Class 1 Void with the ability to levitate objects hurled a steel table at a group of guards, sending them flying. A Class 2 Void with the power to control fire was setting everything ablaze, and the smoke was thick and choking. But it was the Class 3 Void that caught my attention. Her name was Serafina, and she had the ability to manipulate reality and alter minds. She was standing in the center of the chaos, her eyes closed in concentration as she used her powers to create illusions that confused and disoriented the other voids. But then, out of nowhere, a massive blast of energy struck Serafina, sending her flying across the room. I turned to see a figure emerge from the shadows, his power level off the charts. He was a Class 5 Void, and he had come to fight. The Class 5 Void was called Azazel, and he had the ability to warp reality and bend it to his will. He was using his powers to wreak havoc on the other voids, tearing them apart with ease. I realized that I was no match for these beings, and I turned and ran for the server room. Once there, I accessed the cameras and watched in horror as the voids fought each other with their crazy powers. There was a Class 2 Void called Ragnarok, who had the ability to control thunder and lightning. He was locked in combat with a Class 4 Void called Leviathan, who had the power to manipulate water and create massive waves. Then there was a Class 1 Void called Whisper, who had the ability to become invisible and phase through walls. She was fighting a Class 3 Void called Vortex, who had the power to manipulate wind and create massive tornadoes. It was a brutal and terrifying scene, and I knew that I had to get out of there before I became another victim. But as I turned to leave, I saw Azazel standing in front of me, a wicked smile on his face. He had come looking for a fight, and I was the only one left. I braced myself for the worst as Azazel raised his hand ready to strike. But then, as if by some stroke of luck, the power in the prison flickered and then went out completely. As I watched the voids fight, I realized just how little I understood about their powers. They weren't like anything I had ever seen before, and their abilities ranged from controlling fire to manipulating reality itself. One of the most dangerous voids was a Class 4 called Leviathan. He had the ability to manipulate water and could create massive waves that could crush anything in their path. He was in a fierce battle with Ragnarok, a Class 2 void who could control thunder and lightning. Their powers were evenly matched, and it was like watching two gods battling it out. Lightning bolts struck the ground, and waves crashed against the walls, causing the ground to shake. I couldn't help but feel helpless as I watched. None of us station guards had any special powers, and we were no match for the voids. We were nothing more than training dummies for them, and they were tearing us apart. As I continued to watch, I saw a Class 1 void named Whisper. She had the ability to become invisible and phase through walls. She was fighting against a Class 3 void named Vortex, who could manipulate wind and create massive tornadoes. It was like watching a dance as they circled each other, their powers colliding and clashing in a brilliant display. Vortex created a massive tornado that lifted Whisper off her feet, but she quickly recovered and phased through the wall, reappearing behind Vortex. But as the battle raged on, a massive explosion rocked the prison. I could hear screams and shouts coming from the cell block, and I knew that things had just gotten even worse. I left the server room and ran towards the source of the explosion. As I rounded the corner, I saw that the prison was in even more chaos than before. The voids had now turned on the guards, and they were slaughtering us left and right. I saw a Class 3 void named Kraken, who had the ability to control and manipulate the earth, using his powers to create massive fissures that swallowed guards whole. But as I was running towards the chaos, I ran into Seraphina, the Class 3 void I had seen earlier. I froze, not knowing what to do. She looked at me with cold, calculating eyes, and I knew that I was in trouble. But then something strange happened. She seemed to hesitate, as if something inside her was holding her back. I took the opportunity to run past her, knowing that I had to get out of there before it was too late. But as I was running, I could hear her laughter echoing behind me. The rest of the night was a blur of chaos and confusion. I ran as fast as I could, dodging voids left and right, until I finally made it to the exit. I burst out into the night air, my heart racing, and collapsed on the ground. It wasn't until much later that I found out what had caused the explosion. It turned out that Azazel, the Class 5 void, had been looking for a way out of the prison, and he had used his powers to create a massive blast that had destroyed part of the cell block. I couldn't believe my eyes as I watched the Holy Soldiers, a highly specialized military unit, enter the prison grounds. They were the only ones who had a chance against the voids. As the battle raged on, the voids teamed up on the Holy Soldiers, and it was one hell of a fight. The Holy Soldiers were an elite unit of soldiers who had undergone extensive training and genetic enhancements to possess powers similar to the voids. However, their abilities were controlled and trained, unlike the voids who were unpredictable and chaotic. I watched in amazement as the Holy Soldiers fought back against the voids, using their own unique powers to hold their ground. One Holy Soldier used their power to create a force field, protecting themselves from the void's attacks, while another used their telekinetic abilities to hurl debris at their enemies. As the fight continued, one of the voids, a Class 4, unleashed a devastating attack that sent the Holy Soldiers flying. It was then that a lone Holy Soldier, who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped forward. He was unlike any of the other Holy Soldiers I had seen. He was covered in scars and had a look of determination in his eyes. He was a Class 5, the highest level of the Holy Soldiers. The Class 5 Holy Soldier didn't hesitate as he charged towards the Class 4 void, his fists glowing with energy. The two collided in a massive explosion of power, and the ground shook beneath them. I watched as the two exchanged blows, each one trying to gain the upper hand. The Class 5 Holy Soldier had incredible strength, but the Class 4 void was fast and agile. The fight was evenly matched. Finally, the Holy Soldier gained the upper hand, striking the void with a powerful energy blast that sent them flying. The void crashed into the wall, and the fight was over. I couldn't believe my eyes as I watched the Holy Soldiers, a highly specialized military unit, enter the prison grounds. They were the only ones who had a chance against the voids. As the battle raged on, the voids teamed up on the Holy Soldiers, and it was one hell of a fight. The Holy Soldiers were an elite unit of soldiers who had undergone extensive training and genetic enhancements to possess powers similar to the Voids. However, their abilities were controlled and trained, unlike the Voids, who were unpredictable and chaotic. I watched in amazement as the Holy Soldiers fought back against the Voids, using their own unique powers to hold their ground. One Holy Soldier used their power to create a force field, protecting themselves from the Void's attacks, while another used their telekinetic abilities to hurl debris at their enemies. As the fight continued, one of the Voids, a Class 4, unleashed a devastating attack that sent the Holy Soldiers flying. It was then that a lone Holy Soldier, who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped forward. He was unlike any of the other Holy Soldiers I had seen. He was covered in scars and had a look of determination in his eyes. He was a Class 5, the highest level of the Holy Soldiers. The Class 5 Holy Soldier didn't hesitate as he charged towards the Class 4 Void, his fists glowing with energy. The two collided in a massive explosion of power, and the ground shook beneath them. I watched as the two exchanged blows, each one trying to gain the upper hand. The Class 5 Holy Soldier had incredible strength, but the Class 4 Void was fast and agile. The fight was evenly matched. Finally, the Holy Soldier gained the upper hand, striking the Void with a powerful energy blast that sent them flying. The Void crashed into the wall, and the fight was over. As I watched from the cameras, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The battle between the Holy Soldiers and the Voids had been intense, but now things had taken a turn for the worse. The Class 10 Void known as Darthmos had broken out of his cell, and he was wreaking havoc on the island. I had heard stories of Darthmos before, but I had never actually seen him. The very mention of his name sent shivers down my spine. He was said to be the most powerful Void in existence, with unimaginable powers that could destroy entire planets. I watched as Darthmos made his way through the prison, tearing through walls and crushing anything that stood in his way. The Holy Soldiers tried to stop him, but their attacks were futile. Darthmos seemed invincible, his powers growing stronger with each passing moment. It seemed like all was lost. Darthmos was unstoppable, and there was nothing we could do to stop him. But then, something unexpected happened. A group of scientists appeared on the screen, their faces grim and determined. They had been working on a secret project for years, one that could stop even the most powerful Void. Darthmos had decimated the Holy Soldiers with ease, his power far surpassing anything we had ever seen before. It seemed like he was toying with them, using his abilities to kill them in the most horrific ways possible. But then, something unexpected happened. A Class 10 Holy Soldier named Dtrex appeared, breaking through the ceiling of the prison. It was clear from the moment he arrived that he was different from the other Holy Soldiers. He radiated power and determination, and it was clear that he was not going to let Darthmos get the better of him. The battle between Dtrex and Darthmos lasted for hours, with both combatants using every ability at their disposal. It was like watching two multiversal beings fight each other, their power levels exceeding anything I had ever seen before. For a while, it seemed like Darthmos was going to win. His power was simply too much for Dtrex to handle, and it seemed like the Class 10 Holy Soldier was fighting a losing battle. But then, something changed. Dtrex's power began to grow, and it became clear that he was tapping into a reserve of strength that he had never accessed before. With a burst of energy, Dtrex managed to land a devastating blow on Darthmos, sending the Class 10 Void reeling. It was clear that Dtrex had tapped into a new level of power, one that even Darthmos couldn't match. The battle raged on, with both combatants using every trick in the book to gain the upper hand. But in the end, it was Dtrex who emerged victorious. With one final decisive blow, he managed to defeat Darthmos, sending the Class 10 Void crashing to the ground in defeat. The battle was over, and the island was in ruins. But as I looked around at the destruction, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and respect for Dtrex. After the battle, the island was left in ruins. The Voids were either dead or recaptured, and the bodies of the Holy Soldiers were being collected and transported off the island. I watched as they took the remains of Darthmos away. Even in death, he still emanated an aura of power that was palpable. I left the island soon after, feeling both relieved and shaken. The CIA compensated me very handsomely for my service and sacrifice, but the memories of the battle stayed with me for a long time. I later learned that the incident on the island had far-reaching consequences. The CIA had been forced to reveal the existence of the Voids and the Holy Soldiers to the public. It caused a global uproar, with many people questioning the morality of such secretive and dangerous programs. The CIA had to make major changes in the way they handled these programs, and they were never quite the same again. As for me, I retired from active service, and I now spend my days in a peaceful town in the countryside, far away from the chaos and danger of the world. Hey guys, the Nightmare Dreamscape. I hope you enjoyed this story and let me know if you want more. Don't forget like, comment, and subscribe.